Hey there, cinephiles. Ever get that feeling like, you're being watched? Like, no matter how fast you run, your past is right there, right on your heels.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Well, that's film noir for ya, and this year we're going deep, deep into one of its most celebrated gems, Out of the Past. Can you believe it's celebrating its 70th anniversary?
These 70 years, a true classic.
Absolutely. So we're talking smoky back rooms, detectives with a flexible moral compass, and of course the ever so alluring but oh so dangerous femme fatale.
The heart of noir, right there.
Exactly. And let me tell you, we've got some incredible sources lined up ready to unpack every last detail of this iconic film.
Can't wait to dive in.
Me too. We're talking about Jacques Tourneur's masterpiece, starring the ultimate tough guy, the one and only Robert Mitchum.
Oh yeah, Mitchum. Perfect for noir.
The best. But trust me, this isn't just another run-of-the-mill plot summary. We're going way deeper this time, unearthing the themes, the symbolism, all the good stuff that makes Out of the Past such a timeless classic.
Sounds like a plan.
So, we're introduced to Jeff Bailey, played by the incredible Mitchum, a guy trying his best to bury his past as a detective and, just live a quiet life.
The quiet life, huh? Never works out that way in film noir, does it?
Never. And what's so fascinating about this Out of the Past source we found is how it really highlights those inescapable consequences that come back to haunt you.
It's true. It's like the genre itself is telling you you can run, but you can't hide.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff's past isn't just some distant memory, right? It's a shadow that follows him everywhere he goes.
A shadow that seems to lead him right back to the captivating, cunning, and let's face it, dangerous Kathy Moffat.
Ah, Kathy. The quintessential femme fatale.
Right. Talk about an iconic noir trope. She is the definition of fatal woman. And the source we found, Out of the Past, a seminal study of the femme fatale, it really breaks down how she embodies that archetype perfectly.
It's amazing how her character, though, speaks to those deeper anxieties of post-war America.
Oh, how so?
Well, women were stepping into these new roles, challenging those old societal norms.
Right. Right.
And here comes Kathy, this force of nature, completely upending expectations. There's even a source, Cinephilia and Beyond, that talks about how her wardrobe changes throughout the film, how it becomes more masculine as she takes control.
No way. I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's there. Almost like the filmmakers were visually connecting her to those anxieties of the era.
Wow, that's an awesome detail. A whole other layer to the story. Speaking of the story, let's talk about how this thing unfolds. The film jumps back and forth in time, right?
Oh, yeah. Flashback City.
Big time. I mean, even our Wikipedia source calls it a flashback within a flashback.
It's kind of confusing.
Right? A little dizzying, for sure.
Well, and maybe that's the point, right? I mean, that dizzying structure reflects Jeff's state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
He's trapped,
Yeah.
by his memories and by what's going on right now in the film. And the audience, we're right there with him, trying to figure out what's real, what's not. Really plays on that whole noir theme of not being able to outrun your past.
Almost like being caught in a spider web, The more you struggle, the more entangled you become.
Exactly. And speaking of being caught, we got to talk about the man himself, Robert Mitchum.
Ah, he's so good.
The definition of cool.
Right. And Roger Ebert, in his review, he says it perfectly. Weary eyes and a laconic voice.
Nailed it. Mitchum just embodies that world-weary, fatalistic vibe that's pure noir.
Totally. It's not even just what he says. It's everything, Every glance, every gesture.
Oh, absolutely. He can say so much without even saying a word.
It's honestly masterful. But we can't forget about the woman who throws his entire world into chaos, Jane Greer, as Kathy.
Kathy, what a performance.
She is a fantastic counterpoint to Jeff's whole stoic thing. And remember how that one source, the seminal study one, talked about her transformation? It's like not just in what she does, but how she looks too.
Yeah. The way her clothes change, even the lighting around her, it all shifts throughout the film. She goes from this picture of innocence to, well, something much more dangerous.
It's true.
It's like they're visually showing that whole descent into, moral ambiguity. But here's the thing, even with all her scheming, can we really call Kathy a straight-up villain?
That's a good question.
She's a product of her circumstances, making choices that most of us wouldn't even dream of. But there's still this depth to her character that you just can't ignore. Even that Cinephilia and Beyond source, they picked up on that.
Right. She's both, a master manipulator, but also a victim. That's what makes her so interesting.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget the guy who sets this whole powder keg of a plot in motion. Kirk Douglas is Whit Sterling.
Ah, Kirk Douglas.
Right. Talk about intensity. He brings it as the gangster.
For sure.
And you know what's so great? Both Wikipedia and Ebert's review, they both mention this behind-the-scenes rivalry between Douglas and Mitchum. Yeah, you can feel that energy on screen, that power struggle between Wit and Chef. It's in every scene they have together.
Like they're sizing each other up constantly.
Exactly. But you know what always gets me about this film? It's not just, the amazing visuals or the twisty plot, but that dialogue. Ebert even called it, get this, the greatest cigarette-smoking movie of all time.
He's not wrong.
I mean, some of those lines are just pure gold.
So good. Seriously, it's like the writers were chain smoking while writing this thing. Ebert even pulled out some of those gems in his review. Like there's that one where Kathy says, I don't want to die. And
yeah.
Jeff just shoots back with, neither do I, baby. But if I have to, I'm going to die last.
Classic. See, that's what I'm talking about. That perfect mix of, hard-boiled cynicism.
Right.
But with this dark humor that just makes noir dialogue so memorable. You can practically hear Mitchum saying it,
Yeah.
That gravelly voice, full of resignation.
Totally.
But also kind of defiant at the same time.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of atmosphere, Ebert was raving about the cinematography in his review. All those shadows. It's like the cinematographer went to noir film school or something.
Well, Nicholas Musuraca, he was the cinematographer. And yeah, he definitely knew what he was doing. I mean, that play with light and shadow, that smoky, hazy look, it all adds to those themes of moral ambiguity, those hidden truths that are so central to film noir.
It's so effective.
It really draws you into that dark and dangerous world. And then there's that ending.
Oh, man.
Talk about leaving you hanging.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it for our listeners, but it is a bit ambiguous, to say the least. I was reading through the comments on Ebert's review, and people are still debating the different interpretations.
Oh, I bet. It's the kind of ending that sticks with you, long after the credits roll. Classic noir, right? No neat and tidy resolution, just this lingering sense of unease, uncertainty. Makes you question everything.
I know. Those are the best and worst kinds of endings. They stay with you for days. But okay, so we've talked characters, those amazing visuals, that unforgettable dialogue. What's the takeaway here? What do we want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, that's the beauty of Out of the Past, right? It's open to interpretation. But I think when you connect it back to those themes of inescapable consequences and, how alluring the past can be, it really asks us to consider the weight of our choices, how those choices shape who we become. Can we ever truly outrun those pasts of ours, or are we forever tethered to them?
That's a heavy question. A good one, but definitely heavy.
It is. But it's one that I think we all wrestle with, on some level at least. And Out of the Past really lays it all out there with all the suspense and drama. And, thinking about that back and forth between past and present, that structure really makes you wonder, is there ever really a point where we can say, okay, out with the old, in with the new, or do those choices we make, those experiences, just stay with us?
That's such a good point. It's like no matter how hard we try to bury the past, it has a way of, resurfacing, like we saw with Jeff Bailey.
It always seems to find a way. Guess that's life, right? Even with all the bright lights, there's always a little bit of noir lurking somewhere.
A little bit of noir in all of us.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from plot points to femme fatales, from those shadowy visuals to that iconic dialogue. We even explored the psychological impact of it all. So much noir.
Right. What a ride. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Out of the Past, everyone. We'll see you next time when we unpack a whole new set of fascinating sources. Until then, keep it classic.